Greetings, Shadow Era! Welcome to the latest episode of Shadow Era Radio, the official podcast of Woven Studios. This week we've seen a lot of stuff happening. We've had the Swiss rounds of the World Championships regionals qualifiers starting to unfold, and we've seen a lot of great competition going on there. We've had more spoilers find their way into the wild, and a lot of players are having some great reactions, and there's a lot of discussion going on with those. And a whole bunch of much-requested game updates have been announced, and they're making their way to you guys right now. So we've got a lot of exciting stuff going on. Let's go ahead and get talking about it. Here with us today, we have Lewis, also known on the forums as Soothslayer.
Hello, everybody.
We've got Nick, also known on the forums as Orange Hat Guy.
Never heard of him, but he sounds sexy.
We've got Gondorian, also known on the forums as Gondorian.
How do you do?
And we have Kevin, also known on the forums as Nacho Cheese.
Word to your mothers.
Be sure to let her know.
My mother wrote back and said word to you as well.
Oh, she's sending me a copy? Tell her to thank you.
So, we've had a lot of spoilers come out this week. One of the biggest ones being the name, logo, and a bunch of lore for the expansion. Everyone now knows that it's going to be called Dark Prophecies. There's some pretty major story reveals. Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about those?
Well, the name of the set, Dark Prophecies, actually comes from a pair of books that were created around the same time. One was by Wysant, and it was given to his adopted son, Loest. The other was created by the leader of the Shadow faction. Both of these books actually see different paths for what's coming, but they both agree that this is the end of the entire world. This is going to lead both sides to take their forces into battles like the Shattered World of Balor has never seen.
I have to say, I'm really looking forward to what sort of a vibe the expansion has. It's going to be a lot darker in many ways than the stuff that was in the first expansion, which has me excited. We've also spoiled a new card from the expansion called Word of the Prophet. Just to run the card down for you guys who may have not seen it on the ShadowEra.com forums, it is a neutral ability that only costs 1 resource, and its effect is up to 3 target cards in your hand are shuffled into your deck. Draw the same number of cards. So it's a pretty simple sounding utility effect that has a lot more uses than you might think at first, at least in my opinion. What are you guys seeing out there? What's been the reaction of players to this card since we spoiled it a few days ago?
I've had a lot of people talk about how it's basically a mulligan card and nothing more, and I have to really disagree with that. The card has a lot of uses late game. Clumping happens late game, or there's certain things that you're trying to dig for. The real strength of this card to me is that there is never a time that it's in your hand that you don't have something to do with it. Because remember, you can sacrifice for resource any card in your hand at any time. That's just one of the main mechanics of the game. If you don't need the card, you throw it into your sacrifice pile. There's never a time where this card's in your hand and you're not using it, that you don't have something specific you can do with it to better your game state.
I agree with that, actually. I will say that what's probably going to happen is once the expansion hits the test server, is a lot of people are going to main deck 4 of them, just so that on turn 1 they play Word of the Prophet to guarantee turn 2 has a 2-drop and turn 3 has a 3-drop. And they just shuffle in 2 or 3 cards, higher cost cards, cards that we're going to sack anyways, King's Prides or Snow Sapphires or whatever high cost armor, the weapons or other stuff that they weren't going to be able to play till late in the game, just so they can guarantee their first 4 turns or so, or at least have a higher chance at that. So I can definitely see a lot of that being played, but late in the game as well, I can definitely see a lot of use in that. I was playing a priest match the other day, and mid-game I had 3 tidal waves in my hand, and I hadn't used a single one yet because I had solid control of the board. I can see using Word of the Prophet there to cycle 2 of them back and hold on to 1 and see if I can get more threats. Situations like that, it can definitely late game have a use as well, definitely.
And you bring up a good point. It's going to change the meta a little bit. You're going to see a little more of the play on the late game cards. Things like, even things like Eternal Renewal that are only good, really late in the game. You might see a couple more of those getting played because now people know they can cycle that back into their deck and have a better chance of drawing it when you need it rather than having it just clumping up your opening hand.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Well, I'm more of a theory crafter. The deck building is where I really, really enjoy things. And to me, this card actually represents a slight shift in deck building mechanics. Because previous to this, you did not run 1 copy of something. Because the second you put only 1 KP in your deck, you're going to draw that in your first hand, and then it's just going to have to be sacked and you're hosed for the rest of the game. But with this card, I have the ability to, if I get it in my opening hand, if I get it on turn 4, I can put it back into my deck. So running one-offs, which normally is forbidden to me, is something I'm a little more fluid with now. Something I could actually see taking a couple of cards I run one of, or two of, and dropping it down to 1 to make room for Word of the Prophet.
It does say up to 3 cards. Some people have been fixating on, you need cards in your hand to get value. But late game, you might have Word of the Prophet and one other card. And that one other card isn't enough to win you the game on that turn. And you really need to win because you need to kill them before they kill you. And you've got Word of the Prophet, so you use that and you replace that other one in your hand with something else. And that does win you the game. So this card, the flexibility has already been covered, but the fact that it could work just if you've got 1 card or 2 cards in your hand and you're hoping to finish them off before they get you, you've got that option.
Exactly. And I also personally am really looking forward to being able to cycle out multiple copies of Aldon or other unique cards that are, clumping up my hand because I can't play them because I already have a copy on the board. It allows you to play more copies of those unique cards more freely because you can always have the option to cycle them back in and wait to draw them till later.
So, funny story about that. I refuse to ever put more than 3 Aldons in any deck that I build, purely because once you have one on the board, the rest are clumped up. So, like you were saying, my deck building tactics are going to be changed in that too. I mean, I had more of cards I normally wouldn't.
Exactly.
It's funny because my deck building tactics have actually changed slightly over the last 2 months or so, where I'm actually, evolving a little bit, where I'm more willing to include a one-off of a card. Like you said that, it's a forbidden tactic, but I'm actually seeing value in it. I mean, I ran a Zana deck the other day where I had 1 Aeon in the entire deck, and that Aeon won me the game. And I was okay with having 1. My logic for it was it fit my curve, and realistically, I didn't need it in most matches, and the matches I did need it, I was happy when it showed up. And if I got it early, if I had to sack it, then I wasn't exactly, weeping about that. But with this card here, Word of the Prophet, you can do that with more often than just maybe 1 card in a deck. You can have, maybe 1 Sever Ties or 2 Sever Ties in a match where you're not sure whether or not you need it, and in a matchup, you can just cycle it back. I mean, people also forget you can cycle back other copies of Word of the Prophet. You can just opening hand have 3 copies of Word of the Prophet. It's like, well, I'm just going to cycle 2 more back and I'll use them later. Or just cycle 1 back and maybe turn 2, I'll cycle another one back if I have to. My hand is that bad.
And one thing I haven't heard anybody say about this card yet is that it is going to probably be one of my favorite cards to see anytime I'm playing Meltdown, or any limited format for that matter.
Absolutely.
It will absolutely shine in that format.
Absolutely.
Absolutely. I mean, I think it's in limited, drafting and such. I definitely think it's going to be first pickable. I mean, behind some like high-powered, super cards, Aeons and Ogloss and stuff, fixing is never a bad thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And for those who are observant, you may notice that the art on Word of the Prophet is the same guy that is in the logo for the set. So this is a pretty important guy. And Kevin, why don't you tell us a little bit about what he is and what he's all about?
Well, Word of the Prophet is an interesting card, not just because of the game mechanics, but also because of the background it represents. It does kind of show off one of the 2 prophecies, and that art you're talking about is actually a picture of Arthile, who's the second in command of the Shadow Army. Now, some of you may remember Arthile from my 1000th Post extravaganza. He's been resurrected from that 1,000-year sleep to join the Shadow in an attempt to finish the war he started. I'll tell you what, as a special bonus to all the listeners of this podcast, if anyone could tell me, the first person who can tell me what country Arthile was originally from, what country was he fighting to protect 1,000 years ago, I'll give him 500 shadow crystals for my personal inventory. Little lore contest for everyone there.
Interesting.
The plot thickens.
I'm just typing up the private message now. Am I allowed?
No. No, you have the internal documents. You can't see anything.
I've got internal documents. Who implanted them in me?
You heard it.
I wondered what all those scars were when I woke up.
You heard it here first, folks. He's infected with internal documents. It's quite gross.
I want to see pictures of it, actually. I'm intrigued.
X-ray.
Okay. Yes, I need to see these documents that you've internalized.
Man, I want to read them as well. It sounds like there's a good lore in there.
So I hear.
I don't know if I want to read anything that comes out of Gondorian. I don't know about that.
It's harsh. Most of my forum posts are generated from internal documents when they've come out
That's-
the other end.
That conjures some very interesting images in my mind.
Oh yeah.
Sorry, everyone.
Oh yeah.
I will never read your forum posts the same way again, man.
I second that notion. Oh yeah.
So let's just move on now that we've introduced that amazingness
Yeah,
to the picture.
that line of conversation can go nowhere positive from there.
We've also since the last episode, actually in the last episode, we had a sort of stealth spoiler tacked on to the end of our episode, which wasn't quite planned, but it was in there and it worked out anyway. So for those of you who might have missed the spoilers from the last episode because you didn't listen to the iTunes or MP3 version, or you didn't listen all the way to the end, shame on you, by the way, here's what we recorded last time. Hey, so anyone who's still listening to this, you're going to get a super special podcast exclusive set of spoilers.
What? I thought we said no to that.
Well, now we
You
said
do
yes.
that.
Yes, so now
you all just
Kyle,
witnessed
you're gonna get
Gondorian being outvoted by the rest of us.
What?
Make a note of that.
Kyle will not like this. Kyle will not like this.
sorry, Kyle, Gondorian, whoever doesn't like this, but you know what? We like it, so we're doing it. All right.
Oh yeah, we
Excuse me.
like it.
Yeah.
Nurturing Spring, a human artifact for 3 cost. While Nurturing Spring is in play, friendly allies have +1 health. Any player may activate the following ability on their turn. 2 shadow energy, Nurturing Spring is destroyed. Going along with that, there is another card, Contaminated Well, which is a shadow artifact, so it's the flip side of this. For a 3 cost, while Contaminated Well is in play, opposing allies have -1 health to a minimum of 1, so you can't kill people just by playing it. Any player may activate the following ability on their turn. 2 shadow energy, Contaminated Well is destroyed. Alright, so that was our clip of the unplanned spoiler that hopefully was still enjoyable for you guys. Now that they're out there, what's been the reaction from the players to these cards that you guys have seen?
What I've seen hasn't been particularly positive. I mean, they're good cards, they're interesting cards, but the points that are brought up is that neither of them are going to see a whole lot of play. And I mean, especially with Contaminated Well does something that nothing else in the game does. You're going to see decks that play off of it. It's just going to happen.
Yeah, I completely agree. I think they have some pretty good niche uses. Contaminated Well, in particular, synergizes with a lot of direct damage heroes in some really interesting ways that I think having it included in some decks is definitely going to be a thing that people will do.
Yeah.
It'll be used in limited. I mean, these 2 cards, they're both commons. So in limited format, if you draw those, I mean, buffing the health of your allies, because you probably won't get too many allies when you play in limited. So the opportunity to keep them a bit safer, or the converse, playing Contaminated Well to pull their health down, they'll be pretty valuable in limited.
Indeed.
Well, I think what a lot of people are also forgetting when they look at these cards is they're taking these 2 cards and just sticking them in Call of the Crystals and seeing how they participate. There are a great deal of other cards that are going to be released. There's over 100 cards we haven't shown off yet. So if I take Contaminated Well and I compare it with something like Fury and Terror, who has been shown off. Fury and Terror plays with a Contaminated Well out. Some allies, like several allies you would count on to survive a Fury and Terror, just don't because of Contaminated Well.
Well, not just that, but I definitely think that one of the main combos a couple people have noticed, and I think is probably going to be the main combo with Contaminated Well, is Evil Ascendant. Evil Ascendant, Zaldar is definitely going to be a big one who loves it, because all of a sudden now his ability becomes that much more threatening. Majaya is definitely going to be a big one.
Yeah, I agree. She's going to be a very interesting one to play with this card. Alright, so that's the spoilers. Let's move on to the regional tournaments, which are the other really exciting thing that's been going on since the last episode. We we've got the final week of the Swiss rounds underway, and we've seen a lot of really interesting decks and a lot of really exciting competition going on. Gondorian, do you want to take over and tell us what's been going on there?
Sure, yeah. So we're just about to finish the 5th round of 6 rounds of Swiss. Players that are either undefeated or have 4 wins and 1 loss so far. Pretty interesting mix of heroes. I'd like to shout out to the people who are 5-0 or 4-1 at the moment. So I'll start with Asia. So Yuant 3 is the account that he's using from one of his 10 or 20 or so accounts. He's running Amber at the moment, and he's undefeated with Amber. Presumably, he assumed there would be some mages at play. I don't know if he's using Dimension Ripper or not, but that certainly goes down well against mages usually. So he's currently 5-0. Then the other people, we've got Anna Carl Sia running Aladwin and Kay Henson running Aladwin. Then there's Tony Archer with Amber, Salavant with Xana. So there's 3 different heroes so far. Then Lion Dragon has Zaladar, so there's 4 different heroes. Poxy has Zaladar, and KAM Cool King is running Majaya. Do the rest of you guys want to discuss those things?
I think it's really interesting how you see there's a whole bunch of direct damage heroes going around in the meta, and you have the people that predicted those as well, the Zanas and the Ambers, and they've all gotten to the top. You haven't seen the Ambers and Zanas they haven't been able to completely wipe out the mage meta that you had in this tournament, but they're also still competing very strongly in the top running. It's been an interesting dynamic. The mages haven't been completely countered, but the mages haven't been able to completely stamp out their competition either.
Well, kind of the mages haven't been countered is kind of the mages kind of did a Zergling rush on this. We talked about it in the past, how there were just so many direct damage heroes, and we were shocked about it. I do see a lot of them, and the players who are piloting these things are experienced players. But given how many mages there were, I am kind of shocked at how many haven't made it through. So I think players like you, Anthony, that have brought the hard counters made the right call, and it's showing with his undefeated record.
It's funny you should say that, actually, because I haven't seen a whole lot of warriors, and most of the warriors I've seen haven't done particularly well. So I'm actually, really happy to see Yuanthi. I think it's Yuanthi. That's how I always pronounced it. I mean, he's a legend in his own right, in his own mind as well, I suppose. I mean, him bringing in Amber, especially to an undefeated record, when almost every other undefeated record is some form of a direct damage hero or a counter meta Zana, is definitely really, really impressive for me. It's definitely really impressive. I will say though that a lot of mages, I didn't expect a whole lot of warriors, because most people are going to have some sort of warrior hate in the sideboard, because warriors are kind of easy to hate on in the sideboard. Definitely a lot of Zaldars and a lot of Xanas, because they both suffer from the same problem of having too much good stuff to all put in one deck. So sideboard's a good way to kind of remedy that and just sift in what you need. But it's definitely really good to see the mix so far. Definitely really good. I'm actually surprised the only one Magi actually making it to the upper echelon, or at least in the Asian region. One Magi, and in the American region, I'm not seeing any. I believe Gondorian has a little bit more information on the European region, but it's definitely nice to see. Although I did definitely want to have a shout out to 2 players who I think have like 2 of the best names in the entire tournament. One is Mojo Jojo. That's just kind of awesome. That's an awesome name right there. I don't know how nobody took that before. And the other is Dr. Friday. That's just good stuff right there.
There are some other good names coming up as well, I think, you want to mention. In terms of the Asia tournament, I'd just like to say, so Yuant 3 is currently undefeated. I wonder what would happen if he came up against Yuant 7, who some other guy who was top of the leaderboard with the season 5 of Quick Match. That would be quite a battle.
That would be a great game. In fact, I would like to put that game together. If Yuant 3 and 7 would like, I would like to put together a game where they could battle each other, and we could just see who between those two is actually the champion.
I would love to see that.
That would be amazing.
That would be amazing.
And I definitely,
yes.
I definitely also want to have props to Kevin over there for his reference to StarCraft. Zerg Rush. Good job right there, sir. Good job. But it's funny because I'm amazed now that there aren't more people creating Yuanth accounts because he has like 7 or 12 of them on his own. It's
But
many
he's
people are
taking
just
them
flooding
all.
them. It's like
You can't make any more Uanthy accounts because they're all taken.
it's like
So
Yuanth.
he's already got them
Think
all.
there are 7 or 12 of them, but those are just the ones he gets into the leaderboards. I'd be willing to
Exactly.
bet he's up to about 1,000 so that he can test his different decks at lower ratings.
It's like Yuanth number 99 playing Yuanth number 17. I just think it'd be hilarious if you opened up the game and on the live stream you saw a bunch of Yuanths playing each other.
As long as they're all actually different people, then that's fine.
If he can play all of them at the same time, he deserves them. He played that many matches
I
at
think
the
he's
same
got
time.
like 8 arms, like an octopus or something, and he has all these games going on at one time.
8 arms is what boggles my mind. Is how many brains does he have? I tried playing 2 matches at the same time. I failed miserably at both of them. I don't know how he does it.
Well, yeah, however he does it, he is an amazing player, and he is consistently showing up in the top of all of the major competitions and always on the top of the leaderboards. So whatever he does, it works, and he knows this game inside and out.
Yeah.
He
I'm
is
happy he does
Skynet.
tournament. He is Skynet. Oh, good job right there. Good job.
Let's move on to the European tournament region. What do we got going on over there?
Currently undefeated is Maximont, so he's got 5 wins, and he's using Majaya. Then Holy Noob is 4 wins and 1 defeat. He's using Lance. Then the other guys on 4-1, or gals, some of them might be female. Chance is slim, but might be. So Jackie, there was rumors once that he was a she, but he's definitely not. I've checked. Wouldn't say how.
I don't want to know anything about that encounter.
Internal documents.
Exactly. Now we know. Now we know how they got internal.
So yeah, Jackie is definitely male, and he's running Lance as well. Just another kind of thing to show that he's male. He's using the male hero, Lance. Anyway, yeah. So
right.
Lara is using Majaya. King K is using Lance. Ka Leo is using Majaya. Barca Fan is using Zaladar. Finera is using Majaya, and Silverclaw is using Zaladar. So there's only 3 heroes in those either undefeated or 4-1 players at the moment. So not as much variety as in Asia, but different heroes entirely. So where's Amber? Where's Aladwin? Where's Xana? They're in Asia, obviously. They're not in Europe.
Well, the thing I find really interesting here is that there are a lot of lances in the top running for Europe, and there are no rogues anywhere else. There's no Lance, there is no Serena. Only in Europe did rogues make a showing in the top, and they made a strong showing, which I think shows some interesting, perhaps like regional playstyle differences. I'm not really sure what to make of
Well, we
that.
kind of discussed in the previous episode where I was kind of shocked that there weren't more rogues because of their ability to counter so much. Europe had the majority of rogues, and kind of tooting my own horn here, the majority of rogues are what's passed through into the thing. Now, again, the people who are piloting these are not small names. I mean, these are all players we've seen winning games previous to this. There's a reason these guys are known, but still it's the fact that they brought the counters, and the counters are bringing them to the top.
True.
Absolutely, absolutely. I mean, we've seen a lot of, a lot of the old veteran players, a lot of the legends. We've seen a lot of them fall by the wayside in the tournament here, and a lot of new players rise up. And we're seeing some of the veterans, wily vets, doing well. And Barker fans definitely won. I'm not particularly a fan of playing against him. He's always a pain to beat. Barker fan, Loris, Jackie is up there, and you never want to play Jackie. He's too good. You never want to play him. I mean, these guys they're wily vets, and they're showing their skills. I mean, they're bringing definitely some different heroes, but yeah, absolutely.
One thing that's also interesting is you're seeing a lot of names from the last year's top 32 World Championships also doing well here, so obviously those victories were not a fluke.
Definitely.
All right, let's move on to the Americas region. Lewis, I believe you have something to say about that.
Yes. I'll do the rundown first before I have any comments. Up top, we have point standings. That is, we have Monomax using Nishaven, who's at 4-0-1. One's a draw. We have TC Snyder, 4-0-1 with Aladwin, and Diablo 5536, which is the first 4-1-0 of the list. The rest are 4-1-0s, and he's using a Zaladar. KAM Anson is 4-1-0 using a Zaldar. Mr. Boa using a Zana. Bayfighter using a Zaladar, Oblio 91 using Aladwin, Indeed spelt with a 1 using a Zaladar as well, and Fake Kiki using a Zana. So I think it's pretty interesting that out of I believe 12, no 9 players, there are only 4 heroes used. And of the 4 heroes, the bulk of them are Zaldar and Zana. So I really think that's interesting because I think there's more Zanas played in the Americas than are in any of the other regions. Actually, more Zanas in Zaldar. It's very polarizing. So I think it's definitely interesting to see that we have the one Nishaven up top, which I'm really kind of shocked by. I mean, we're not seeing Nishaven do that well in any of the other regions. Especially having them go undefeated, it definitely shows, that this is something to watch. I'm definitely intrigued to see, what kind of tactics and styles he's using to make up some of the tougher matchups.
Well, one of the things I'm kind of noticing is if you look at the Asian, you look at the European, you've got warriors and you've got rogues, which are two very, very hard counter classes to mages. You've got rogues who have the ability to put out a Spell bands and hold off mages almost indefinitely if they loop it right. You've got warriors, which just have the HP. Whereas priests and elementals, I would consider them more of your all-rounder classes. They don't have super strong matchups, but they don't have super weak matchups either. So I'm kind of noticing that in the other realms, you've got your direct damage mages, and then you've got your counters. And then here in America, it's almost all the well-rounded classes. Mages only are holding like 3 spots out of these 8.
Well, it's funny because definitely in the Asian region, you're seeing people go very aggressive with their styles. With Amber's an aggressive hero, Aladdin's an aggressive hero, Magi is very aggressive. In the European region, you're seeing people go very aggressive as well. Zaldar is very aggressive, Magi is very aggressive. Lance is aggressive still, but a little bit less aggressive than the others. A little bit more control based. But in the American region, you'll see people go pretty control based. Because Nishaven is slightly aggressive, but he's one of the least aggressive of the mages. He's more control based, especially with his ability of being a giant board nuke. Zana is the most control based of the heroes in the tournament. In the upper echelon, at least. You're seeing more Zaldars played here as well, which they're aggressive as well. But it's definitely interesting to see the change of styles with the different regions. As a final thought before I pass to you guys, I definitely want to notice, the absence is obvious here. We haven't seen a single Moonstalker in the top level, and I'm actually kind of happy about that. Actually, I kind of think that's really interesting. I mean, not just like the Millstalker meta, because most people would have teched against that because it wins games, so most people would have something just in case.
Your statement about that it wins games only holds partially true. It wins games when you don't tech for it. With these tournaments, everyone has sideboard. I think Millstalker specifically is so ridiculously weak to sideboards that running him was just too much risk.
I have to agree.
I agree 100%. And I'm actually not that surprised to see Moonstalker not taking hold, because if you paid attention to the pre-game discussion at the high-level players, if you were on IRC chats or on forums where these discussions were happening, a lot of excitement around Zaladar and mages, the direct damage heroes, which are the natural predators of Moonstalker decks, because the whole thing with Moonstalker is being able to hide these allies and protect them from attacks, but to counter it, you go with direct damage. So if you know that 50% of your potential opponents are playing direct damage heroes, Moonstalker is a horrible choice. I would have been very surprised to see anyone playing it, given what we expected the meta to be like shaping up.
Yup.
All right, I guess that was just the last word on that.
I guess
Seth has
so.
laid down the law.
All right, so yeah, that's our basic player and hero breakdown of what's been going on in the regional tournaments, and as we said, the last week of matchups has started to unfold now. Gondorian, why don't you tell us a little bit about the finals?
Okay, they're going to be on the weekend of the 8th and 9th of December, so very soon. You might have even missed it if you've listened to this podcast late. I can tell you now, it's going to be great, or it was great, depending on when you listen to it. Anyway, 8th and 9th of December, so each region, the top 8 from the Swiss for each one will face off in single eliminations. There'll be 3 rounds, and the precise time is yet to be set. It'll be based on availability of the players, and we'll try and get it wrapped up as conveniently as possible for people. I'm really looking forward to it. My wife's giving me the weekend off to do the whole thing, so props to my
Your wife
wife.
is giving you the weekend
Nice.
off.
Props to my wife for let me focus on that for the whole weekend, yeah.
And it's going to be a really great time. I'm really looking forward to seeing these matches and how everything goes down. It's going to be some very intense competitive Shadow Era.
The thing I'm looking forward to most is the in-between matches to see what kind of how people strategize their sideboarding. To see, well, after the first match, what people sideboard in, clearly by what they play, and what people sideboard out by seeing what they're either resourcing or they're not playing as much of. So definitely stuff like that's going to be interesting.
Indeed. Indeed. All right. Well, we're starting to look a little long on the clock for where we should be compared to my notes. So let's keep us moving right on here. The next version of the game, version 1.7, is bringing a whole bunch of really interesting, cool, and requested features to the game. It's in the final testing phases right now, and we're getting ready to submit it. And it should be making its way through the channels to you guys very soon. Hopefully really soon, and I'm pretty excited about it. It includes a drag and drop UI, so playing games should go a lot smoother, especially on like an iPad. You don't have to be tapping all those buttons. You can just drag cards right into where they go. Another thing that's very cool is the introduction of card sleeves, so you can actually customize the backs of your decks with different art and cool customizations like that. That's coming with version 1.7, so look forward to that. I'm really excited about that because I like cosmetic type stuff in games. I like to pimp my guys out and have things look the way I want them to look. Also, since we know that the pre-order bonuses for those of you who pre-ordered the physical cards, these have been taking a while, and we're really, really sorry. One of these sets of sleeves, as soon as it launches, is being given to all of the pre-order people for free. The Zaladar art that's going to be on those sleeves that you're getting with your physical bonuses, those will also be given to you as in the digital game for free, just as our way of saying thanks for being patient and we love you. All right, so let's move on to the listener questions. This is my favorite part of every episode, so I'm excited.
Because we're near the end.
Almost
done.
The light at the end of the tunnel.
We made it this
I
far.
can see it.
It's over.
I love this because we always get questions of our sanity and our capabilities, so that always makes me happy.
I mean, we literally did this time. But in any case, first up, one thing we saw in this thread, and we've just seen in general on the forums, a lot of questions about the format and timing of the World Championship 2013 finals. We are not prepared to give that information out. It's not close enough to time yet. We have a lot of really great stuff that we're getting ready for, but we're announcing this stuff. We want to focus on one stage of the season at a time. So stay tuned to the ShadowAir.com forums and to this podcast, and we will let you guys know everything in due time. So first up on the non-World Championships listener questions, we have Demenchi. I question the design team's sanity. That's not really a question, but let's go ahead and address it. Kevin, what would you like to say about this?
I completely spaced out what we're doing.
I think that tells us something right there.
I'm pretty sure Gondorian's off drooling somewhere, so sure, why not?
I'm off my
What?
meds, so leave me alone.
What? I'm fine. I'm perfectly sane. Definitely.
That's what the doctor told you.
That's what I
Well,
told myself earlier anyway.
That's what the doctor told us to tell him. He's sane. He's sane.
Sanity's far overrated.
Indeed. So, Demenchi's other question, or I guess his only question, since that wasn't really a question, but we'll give him a free
That was a
pass
bit rude,
anyway.
given that he's a moderator on the forums to question our sanity. I think
That's true. It's kind of asking for trouble, isn't it?
there will be trouble.
He's
I can ban him. Actually.
Ban Hammer.
But not if he bans you first, because he's
The
a
banning
moderator.
wars, let them begin.
He'll be banned by the
Boom!
time this gets published, so won't know it's coming.
It would be funny if we all log in and GDC is no longer a member of the design team.
Like,
Like
You've
you
been
got
banned.
fired by Dimchi.
you got banned.
All right. So, Demenchi's other question: if you were to become a Shadow Era hero, what would be your ability? I know what mine would be. Well, I think it would probably be 0 shadow energy, cast 2 fireballs.
Do they have to be in your hand, or are they just
I
like
think it's
fireballs appearing out of the.
I disagree. I think your ability would be 3 shadow energy, search your deck for a supernova, and add it to your hand.
Oh, good job, Kevin. Good job. Well done. I didn't even have to say it that
But
time.
according to Lewis, that's like that's an ability that I'm banned from having.
You'll
I
never
didn't even
use
have to
it
say it
because
this
you
time.
never put it in. You'll be
I didn't
looking
even
through your deck going, I'm sure it was in here, I'm sure it was in here. And it's not. Wasted 3
No, no,
shadow
no,
energy.
no, 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 Kevin. You have to get it correct. His ability is use 4 shadow energy, whatever it is, to look at his sideboard for a supernova and play that.
Or would it be 3 shadow energy, remove all supernovas from all players' decks from the game?
No, that would be Painful Smile's ability. I already know that.
I don't know what my ability would be, but I know that I would be a shadow hero because I have a long history of defending crystals and starting wars against humans. I guess the shadows didn't really start the war, did they? Yeah, they kind of did. Kevin, weigh in on this.
Really, no one started a war. It's just kind of what happens whenever you put 2 people with opposite goals in the same room.
All right, well then that's my ability. 1 shadow energy, start a war.
See, you heard it here, folks. The entirety of Shadow Era started with the Sneetches on the beaches.
Damn right.
The what?
I don't know what that means, but I entirely agree with it anyway.
All right, moving on.
I didn't get to say my ability.
Oh, okay. Go back. Say your ability. Say your
my
ability.
My ability was gonna be the only one that could possibly actually be an ability. Cause it'd be like 4 or 5 shadow energy, and it's like take your entire opponent's hand and put it on the bottom of their deck. It's like ha.
Mine would be 3 shadow energy,
How could that-
remove target card with no flavor text from the game.
Wouldn't that be a very poor? Like that ability is only good if you suck at your
Exactly.
job.
That's only good if you don't. Is it
The more I
flavor-
suck at my job, the more powerful I become.
Oh, that just blew my mind, son.
I'm sure there's a not safe for work joke in there somewhere, so just stick that in there.
Next up, we have Adam Zed. I would like to find out the reasoning for choosing a best of 3 format for regionals. In my opinion, the best of 4 format is better because it allows both players to alternate playing first and second an even number of times.
Wow.
Gondorian, why don't you go ahead and...
Well, I love how he's championing the format we used for the World Championships 2012, because I mean there was mixed feedback about that radical approach. So it's good to hear that somebody thought that was great, but not enough people spoke up saying it was great, and so we went back to just best of 3 for this. That's how things normally work in other TCGs. So we tried to move to being more, I guess, predictable and following tried and tested approaches. So I mean, best of 4 might be an option for a future regional again. You know, if people are calling out for that, then that could be possible. But for now, yeah, the reason was just because that's the traditional way of doing it, and I was possibly too radical with World Championships 2012, so I wanted to bring it back to what people expect, really.
And one thing that's really important to note is that we actually do pay attention to all the feedback that goes on the forum whenever events like this happen, or when events are coming up, or when you guys are speculating about events you'd like to see in the future. We actually do read all those posts, and we actually are taking everything into account. So if we see everyone wants to play this best of 4 format, and if we see people are organizing lots of independent player tournaments with that format, and that becomes a very popular thing with the competitive scene, we would absolutely do it. We just need to know that it's the support of the community is behind it, because ultimately that's what we're here to do, is make an awesome competitive scene for you guys. Next up, Nate the Great wants to know, why is it that all loading screens and logos support the humans? The shadows are just left asking, where's the love, bros?
We, the design team, are humans, and we're racist.
But didn't you just get done saying you were a shadow?
I don't.
It's true. You're.
Do you remember the one earlier? Do you remember the first question where they questioned our sanity?
Yeah.
I want to back Nick's play on this one. You really can't expect consistent answers from us.
He's a self-hating human. Just accept that.
Exactly.
There's a serious answer if anybody wants it. Probably not. They wouldn't be listening to this if they wanted serious answers, would they? So I'll save that.
Well, let's just throw it out there anyway.
Well, the idea is when you sign up, you get a human hero, and the game's based around this shadow era that has descended on this human world of Baylor. So you kind of think of the humans as the good guys, and hopefully we identify with the human characters. And when you're playing Shadow, really you're playing the baddie. So you don't want to showcase them too much on the loading screens and so on. You want to think of yourself as one of these heroic humans, I think. As we move into other sets, then maybe the Shadow might get more PR love on loading screens and so on.
Let's also not forget that Zaladar is on the official sleeves and is on the booster boxes. So Zaladar has definitely grown into being a new poster boy.
And he's on
That's
the
true.
design team
That's
T-shirts
true.
as well.
Yeah.
Yes.
Also
yes,
at the conventions, if anyone remembers, it was Speed Strike, Zaladar, Nishaven, Majaya, and Jasmine that were our posters,
Aeon.
and Aeon. So the Shadow is getting its representation. It's building the repertoire.
Not a lot of the players get to see these, at least not yet, but the Speed Strike and I believe Pack Wolf are featured on the Shadow Era business cards.
Yes, that's right.
Yeah.
Mine is still in the post. I think they're stuck in Vietnamese customs. My business card.
I'm sure there's a joke here somewhere about the choice of Speed Strike for that.
Right.
All right, and our last listener question for this episode, Pandemonium wants to know: is he Orange Hat Guy because he wears an orange hat, or does he wear an orange hat because his nickname is Orange Hat Guy?
Kevin, do you want to weigh in?
Well, at the dawn of time, the only color that actually existed was orange. So there may be some religious connotations with it.
Now, the real answer to the question, I like that though.
The
I
religion
honestly,
of the orange hat.
well, the first thing you gotta know is I don't actually wear the orange hat. The orange hat chooses to rest on my head, and that is it grants me boons and special powers and all that jazz. And everybody knows what hats do. But I've been with the hat for 12 years now, and so that which predates Shadow Era by about a decade. I've been Orange Hat Guy on many different forums, many different places. It's been my web nickname for a long time. But to answer your question directly, I am called the Orange Hat Guy because of the hat. I did not wear the hat. I didn't name myself Orange Hat Guy and then go out and find a hat to match it.
I really like to think of it as the hat choosing you. To go back to that religious symbolism, I really think that the hat sort of, when it was incarnated, it needed to find its chosen one to go out into the world and perform its will, and you were just clearly the best.
That's exactly how it happens. I'm more or less a prophet of the hat, but he doesn't have any prophecies. So
There can be only one.
That's a very interesting
Indeed.
prophet, by the way.
He's still pondering on his prophecies. He'll get back to you later with those.
Right.
All right, and apparently I also lied because we actually have one more listener question, also from Pandemonium. Another important question I forgot: who are the female Shadow heroes?
So the definitive list, once and for all, the only
Kevin, you gonna
female
answer?
Shadow Era heroes are Amber, Eladwin, Gwen, Zana, Serena, and Majaya.
Just 6.
Well, there we go.
So that means that the only female Shadow hero is Magia. So all the arguments about Elementalists or Moonstalker potentially being a female, this is your official answer for, like, I think this is like the 5th or 6th time the official answer to this has been given, but this is the official answer. They are.
This is the official clarification of the official answer.
And
Also-
Jackie is male as well. Don't forget that.
Yes, Jackie's
Jackie.
also male because Gondorian has confirmed, apparently.
Yep.
Also worth mentioning that Elementalists and Zaladar, being elementals, don't truly have a gender, but they are both identified as male because they both have a fire snake. Good night, folks. I've been here all week.
Oh, all right. I think that is a
That's a good
good.
note to end on right there.
I wouldn't say that was a good note, per se.
But it was funny.
Well, thanks for tuning into Shadow Era Radio, where the drinks are cold, the snakes are hot, and the O penis is never censored.